Welcome to SCDM's AI and eSource podcast series. My name is Linda King, and I'm the SCDM facilitator for the eSource Implementation Consortium. The consortium's mission is to advance the adoption of eSource in clinical research. The use of artificial intelligence in its many forms, whether generative AI, agentic AI, machine learning, natural language processing, large language models, or GPT, has the potential to increase eSource adoption through the most effective implementation processes, documentation, training, validation, etc. This podcast series will talk with folks using AI and eSource from multiple clinical research perspectives, sites, sponsors, and technology vendors. Our guest today is Cal Collins. Cal is representing a technology vendor perspective. Cal Collins is the CTO and co-founder of OpenClinica, where he leads the development of modern, interoperable technologies that power today's clinical data workflows. A longtime advocate for making clinical research smarter, faster, and more connected, he contributes to key industry initiatives such as HL7 Vulcan, CDISC, and the SCDM eSource Consortium. Cal played a pivotal role in the award-winning OneSource initiative with the FDA, demonstrating how EHR to EDC data flow improves both quality and efficiency in platform trials for oncology and infectious disease. With the deep belief in the power of standards to drive transformation, Cal works at the intersection of protocol digitization, real-world data integration, and clinical operations. Cal is a director and co-founder at Mighty Union, a digital agency for critical brands, and holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard College. Welcome, Cal.
Thanks, Linda. It's really exciting to be here to talk about this timely and very relevant topic. And I'll start by saying I'm an avid listener of the podcast. So thanks for everything you do. And I'm a big supporter of the great many things SCDM does to help the clinical research industry advance. Looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Cal. One thing I did want to share with the audience is also a quick SCDM disclaimer before we get started. This information presented in the podcast is provided by the Society for Clinical Data Management, SCDM, eSource Implementation Consortium. It is intended for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, regulatory, or professional advice. SCDM and the speakers are not responsible for any actions taken based upon the information provided. Users are advised to consult with appropriate professionals for specific advice tailored to their individual circumstances. The opinions expressed are attributed to the speakers only and not their respective employers. Well, let's get started. Cal, before we dive into AI, could you start by sharing what area of eSource you focus on the most? For example, ECOA, EHR to EDC integration, digital health technology, digital protocols, monitoring, end-to-end data flow, eSource training, analysis, etc.
Sure. Yeah. OpenClinica really focuses on end-to-end eSource, not just point solutions. And in particular, for us, that includes ECOA, EHR to EDC integrations, digitally enabled protocols, and connecting participant recruitment all the way through data lock. We deliver this through a core technology platform that provides a traditional EDC that does that job really well, but it's also built from the ground up for eSource. And the overall goal is pretty simple. It's more participants, faster data in a way that's proven, clean, and easy. So among those eSource focus areas for us, ECOA is electronic capture of participant reported data with integrated engagement functionality such as automated messaging and scheduling. EHR to EDC integration is where we're able to drastically reduce data transcription and data entry and correspondingly reduce site user burden by automatically populating case report forms with clinical data from the patient's chart in their electronic health record system, often a system such as Epic or Cerner/Oracle. Digitally enabled protocols allow us to use structured protocol content as a driver of downstream system behavior for schedules, forms, recruitment, and more. So that really powers those ECOA, EHR to EDC use cases, and increasingly kind of end-to-end recruitment to data lock workflow, so that participant engagement, eligibility determination, data capture, all the way to data review are all connected rather than siloed. So while eSource is often discussed narrowly, is this data originally electronic? At OpenClinica, we try to think about eSource less as those siloed technologies and more as an end-to-end data strategy for clinical research, with a focus on how data flows from the patient or clinician through systems and ultimately into analysis with integrity preserved at every step.
That's an amazing breadth of eSource experience that you have. So that's great for this discussion. And wanted to kind of pivot and kind of talk about then of these eSource projects or eSource work that you do. Can you share what kind of projects you're doing involving AI that you're currently working on or worked on recently? And if you can, what type of AI technologies are being used? For instance, generative or agentic AI?
Yeah, sure. We don't look at AI as a solution in search of a problem. And the online debates between a world of unlimited abundance versus the Terminator-like rise of the machines are great fun, but we're maybe a little more pragmatic and boring. We try to start with very practical questions, things like, where are users spending too much time? Where is manual effort creating risk, or where are we repeating work that software should be able to handle better? So a couple of concrete examples include powering study setup through AI-based automation, where AI helps interpret and transform narrative protocol documents into structured computable study elements to accelerate EDC, ECOA, and EHR to EDC configurations. So this provides a huge boost to study startup activities, both within individual systems and also with great potential for improved cross-platform interoperability. Another area is data ingestion and transformation, particularly for things like EHR to EDC pipelines, also data migration projects or one-off data ingestion pipelines, where often mapping and normalization are very time-consuming activities to do in a traditional way, but they're pattern-rich and great candidates for AI-based approaches. There's also things we look at that are more internal to our business processes as a technology platform provider, or supplementary to our users' experience, our tools, and help them get a better overall user experience. So those include things like knowledge access and self-service. So things like AI-driven Q&A agents, both for internal and user-facing purposes that are trained on validated documentation tied to business processes and technical documentation. And, of course, things like internal productivity, to use an example, software engineering, applying AI-based technologies for code analysis, test generation, and documentation support. From a technology perspective, we're primarily using large language models in our approach, and we're also experimenting with agent-based patterns and AI-powered workflow orchestration as things we're looking towards doing more of in the future.
Thank you. That's quite a large amount of different types of projects that you're working on with considering AI. As AI becomes more integrated into your eSource or eSource workflows, have you or your team needed any specific AI-related training or upskilling, and what's that experience been like?
Yeah, sure. From a skills perspective, prompt engineering, to pick one thing, is definitely a real skill, and doing it in a way, doing it in a real way means learning how to phrase things, but even more importantly, how to measure output quality, how to assess bias, how to assess failure modes, and do that in an iterative way. One thing we've done is created internal forums within our company and across our teams that includes Slack channels and working groups where teams share what's working and what isn't. We've invested in internal training, demos, and best practice sharing, including on things like those evaluation and measurement practices, which I believe are really important. And we also collaborate with outside groups wherever we can to make sure we're staying current with AI technologies and practices.
That's great. So I assume that as you're implementing all of these and upskilling your teams and such, you may have faced some challenges along the way. What would you say are the top 3 challenges you faced in implementing AI within eSource workflows?
I'd say one challenge that we identified early on and have really tried to get right is governance. So early on, we recognized that if AI was going to be more than a novelty, or worse, a compliance risk, we needed clear guardrails. So at OpenClinica, we established an AI usage policy that defines principles around data privacy and protection, use of customer and or regulated data, model training and retention concerns, transparency and traceability of AI outputs. And we classify AI use cases by risk level. So low risk uses like drafting internal documentation can move very fast. And of course, higher risk uses like anything influencing regulated outputs or using proprietary data require validation, oversight, and human review. As we built this governance framework, we recognized the area was evolving rapidly and would continue doing so likely for years. So we wanted everyone on our team to be comfortable to learn, experiment with, and use AI within these guardrails and without creating undue burden. So we tried to make them as clear and simple as we could. At the same time, we're very clear to everyone on our team. We still 100% adhere to the processes and principles that are required and crucial for doing business in the clinical research industry. So our SOPs still need to be followed. Software needs to be planned for and validated. And while we're working with new technologies and sometimes new approaches, none of this replaces the really important obligations we have to our customers and ultimately to patients to help ensure data quality and safety. So at the end of the day, humans remain accountable there, and I think we put a lot into surmounting that challenge. A couple others are really avoiding hype. As I said, try to be boring in this area. And think about ways we can deliver measurable value, be intentional about solving real problems, and not chasing trends, and applying rigor and validation to the things we do, the use cases where we apply AI. And AI systems require significant effort to evaluate and validate. In most regulated use cases, you still want to have a human in the middle to really confirm outputs and sign off on things or tweak them and update them before you get to the next step. And defining how those handoffs work is a critical thing.
Those are some very big challenges that you mentioned. Certainly, a lot of folks will be interested probably in this podcast too. If you could share 1 or 2 examples or case studies where AI was applied in an eSource project, maybe the key challenges there and what ultimately worked well for you.
Yeah, great. So as I mentioned, we've invested heavily in AI-powered study setup tools to provide a a hugely needed accelerant to study startup. So the way we do this is via an embedded large language model that's able to interpret narrative, unstructured protocol documents and transform them into structured, computable study elements that accelerate EDC, ECOA, and EHR EDC configuration. The AI reads the protocol, generates a candidate schedule of activities in the OpenClinica study designer, and can populate form designs with content from a standards-based curated library or a particular organization's custom curated library of forms and data elements. It just takes a few minutes to populate the drag and drop study design canvas in the OpenClinica system. And because it's directly integrated into those existing design tool workflows, it allows for expert review and editing prior to anything being finalized and published. So we provide a way to maintain a human in the middle while greatly enhancing efficiency and accelerating a lot of the study setup and configuration process. So, as we dove into this area and built a lot of cool stuff over the last year and a half, we had a hard question to say, how do we really ensure this technology delivers accurate, useful results? So we evaluated the AI-generated activity schedules against predefined gold standards across multiple protocols. We assessed model reproducibility across multiple runs and worked to identify any systematic deviations in event or assessment extraction. So we wanted to show, if we generate a schedule of activities, that corresponds with what's described in the protocol, that we're getting the structure and timing of events right, the right forms or assessments are identified in the right places at the right time points. And when we were done, the results really surpassed my expectations. We achieved 92% or greater sensitivity and 80 to 100% specificity across all the runs. So we're really excited about this capability and what it brings to our users to shorten study startup times, reduce labor costs, and also ease the learning curve for new users of our platform.
That's a great example, and I'm sure one that would resonate a lot with our listeners. You mentioned libraries or standards and things of that nature, metrics, I'm sure, to kind of watch how those are being used. Maybe we can talk a few more minutes on just standards in general. So there's those type of standards. There's also AI standards or frameworks. What type of standards overall have you been implementing? What challenges you may have in aligning with certain standards? Could speak a little more on that topic?
Yeah, cool. Let me start with kind of the AI side of things, and I'll jump into health and data standards, and the combination of the two, which I think is incredibly exciting and powerful. So just on the pure AI side of things, we don't rely on any single standard or approach, partially because the space is evolving so quickly. But we do emphasize prompt engineering as a discipline, staying current with best practices and techniques, taking iterative approaches to how you interact with LLMs for defined use cases, and then making sure for cases that would be user facing, make sure there's defined requirements and acceptance criteria, just like you do with any other software technology. An area that's really developing fast and offers incredible potential are agent-based approaches, particularly the MCP or Model Context Protocol style patterns of using AI. So that agentic AI is referring to autonomous AI systems that can understand goals, reason, plan, and take action with minimal human oversight to solve complex problems. So we're experimenting with these approaches as a company. Certainly, I, as a user, when faced with something novel, in my day to day, will often put it in and ask ChatGPT to come up with an approach, and it is pretty incredible, how it can develop a plan and then execute that plan to produce some output. But as this approach involves not just delegating a use case to the AI, but giving it fairly broad latitude on how to solve the problem. Right now, we're being erring on the cautious side, I'll say, about using it extensively in regulated or high risk areas. But certainly the potential's there, and as these models develop, that'll come. Last, and I think most important, is that open standards, when combined with AI, are kind of a secret sauce. So you combine AI, LLM based tools that can really understand and reason on and handle an incredible amount of detail with open, well documented standards in our industry. I particularly tend to spend a lot of time with the FHIR and CDISC standards. And when you combine those two together, it's incredibly powerful. So CDISC, for a long time, is kind of going back to pre LLM days, has showed us the power and advantages of structured metadata for studies and all the things that can help enable or improve. And I think we're entering the next generation of that, that will drive a plethora of downstream use cases powered by AI. So you can ask a modern LLM to reason about particular CDISC or FHIR resources, generate transformation logic, business logic, accelerate pipeline design, do a whole host of things. And because it has pre-existing understanding of these standards, because it's ingested their online documentation from the web, it can do much more and do much better than if you just ask it to address the particular business problem you're trying to solve on its own. And one thing we're seeing today, in that area of the industry is adoption momentum around the next generation of digital protocol standards, things like the ICH M11 and USDM. And as those come to fruition and gain adoption, it's just going to add even more power across the board.
Yeah, you're describing, in the last little bit here, just some of the really exciting things that are happening today in the use of AI and eSource, and thinking ahead to the future. What challenges do you foresee in scaling AI even more across eSource? Is it in technology or governance or even workforce readiness to use more AI in eSource?
Yeah, great question, and really, really important perspective to have. I think on one hand, we'll continue to see entirely new capabilities that simply weren't possible before, especially around automation, insight generation, more and more cross-platform, cross-vendor interoperability as well. We're moving as fast as we can on these at OpenClinica, and I know many others in the industry are doing great things as well. But on the other hand, some of the biggest wins will be incremental. Faster feedback cycles, fewer manual errors, better support experiences, better training experiences, helping teams think that way, using AI to continuously improve their everyday workflows is kind of a cultural shift. So the scaling challenge, I think, becomes how do we find the right balance between encouraging speed and experimentation while not sacrificing quality and repeatability, and making sure there's good frameworks in place for measurement. And with those two things in mind, you also have to set it up in a way that can use today's AI effectively while still be adaptable for whatever the next great LLM is, or the great advancement in some of the underlying fundamental AI technologies are. So finding that balance is where a lot of the sustainable value will be created. I think generative AI is a truly disruptive technology that'll be used on a daily basis by almost everyone in the clinical research industry. Personally, I don't see it replacing clinical research professionals, but rather making all of us more productive and higher performing. So I think we've got a really exciting future ahead of us.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited about all the great things that you're doing today, and what's around the corner as well. I think you said it really well about getting that right balance to keep moving ahead. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Cal, and just a great discussion on sharing your AI and eSource journey with the audience. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot today on AI and eSource.
Thanks, Linda. Really appreciate it.